And people will say, well, how can God take your wife? It's like you can focus on that, but you can focus on the other stuff of how it's improved my life, how it's enhanced my life, how it's helped my boys, how I've been able to influence and help so many people uh, in the world, and there's a bigger plan, and I choose to accept that than choose to accept the other, because I don't think I'll ever find the answer. Why did you take my wife? But I'm going to find out, what do I need to learn through this, and how do I need to become a better person. So
I'm so glad you said that. Obviously, mostly because it's the truth and because it's a beautiful sentiment, but it's also going to allow us to explore something maybe in an easier way than it would have been, because it's a delicate thing, and it kind of ties to where we were in the beginning of the conversation. And I'm trying to struggle and work through this in my own head too. Like, as you're explaining that, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful sentiment, and I think the idea of you taking that and helping others. But there's a part of it implicit in that, which is that for you to learn from it, for you to kind of move past it and all that, it's almost like you have to be like not dismissive of what happened, but it's this step to say, okay, that happened, but now I'm gonna go do some other stuff. Like, what about me now? What do I go do? How does this impact me? How do I move forward? And that's the part that I think where I was before, that I grapple with, and I think it's really interesting to hear you explain it the way you did, because I think you're starting to cover it. But let me think of how I want to ask this. Like, is it implicit in you moving past that you had to say, I'm okay with the fact that my wife died, right? And in some ways, that question is such a fascinating question to me, because on one hand, I could see you saying, I'll never be okay that my wife died. Like, to ask that question is almost offensive. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That was my wife. I loved her, all the things. But at the same time, there's another way to look at that question and say, in the way you articulate it, like almost a yes, because it allowed you to have a better relationship with her, because it allowed you to understand yourself better and your relationship with your
yep.
boys and help others. And I don't know what to do with that question, because there's a part of me that says the answer to that should never be yes, because it's your wife and she died, and that's the storyline. But then I hear the way you're explaining it, and that makes sense to me too. And I'm sure a lot of people grapple with this. That's that guilt we were talking about before. Maybe it's survivor's guilt. I don't know. But how do you think of that question? Are you okay with the fact that your wife died? How do you process that?
Yeah, I mean, I've done addiction recovery for so long, so I've taught them about how to come to a state of acceptance that they are an addict
Yeah.
and they made these choices, and until they can come to a level of acceptance, then it's hard for them to like move on, because they're in denial and they still make bad choices and they hurt their family. But what I saw in those rooms and with people in addiction recovery is like, until they became accepted of the reality, then that allows them to move on. And I think what you said is, once you can accept that my wife is, that was her, she's passed away and she's moved on and she's in a better spot, that's allowed her to be able to help from the other side and accept that piece for what it is. When I accepted that, then I was like, okay, I gave myself permission
Permission.
to
Mm-hmm.
go and do my work, to work on myself. And again, I tell people, like, my wife's passed on. She's not sitting there saying, I'm so glad Jason is sad
I wanted
and
to be
he's
miserable.
lonely and he's depressed. Like, hell no. Like, she's like, no, Jason, I need you to go help this person. I need this. And she's rooting me on. And that's how I can learn about her and really become connected, because I've let go of that part and I focus on me, and by accepting, again, it brings me closer and more connected to my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I it took me a while to accept that, and there's that denial, those stages of
Yeah.
grief that get you there, and you're just like, gosh, this is my reality. My reality is I'm the hybrid parent, where I have all these responsibilities and all these difficult things that I have to deal with. And that part, that's when I was stuck and I just couldn't let go and I couldn't get happier and I couldn't allow people in, because I was still stuck in the past of my wife hoping that she was alive and hoping that things would change. But the reality of it is I finally accepted that, and it's been a godsend that has allowed me freedom to kind of help myself, help my kids, and do what I need to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think last kind of dark negative question. And I want to focus the rest of the conversation on the awesome stuff you're doing now because I think it's super cool and I'd love to hear about that. Um, you know, and the reason I ask these questions and the reason I do the show in many ways is I'm sure there are people out there struggling just like the way
Yeah.
you are, whether it be with the same situation or something similar, and they're grappling with these same things. And maybe they can't even say the words out loud to themselves because it's too hard, as you and I have talked about. So maybe hearing other people explore it, even though it is hard, it is uncomfortable, it is dark at times, maybe it helps people to realize those things. So, in the spirit of that, last question of it, is there ever a thought or a fear? I guess I'll say the word is that and maybe your faith addresses this, but that it's an illusion we create, right? Maybe we should never accept it. Maybe it is as bad as we thought it was, but we just have to tell ourselves that it's different because we're still here and we want to be able to function and we do want to be happy, right? That is the reality of what we want to be. So we have to tell ourselves this story that it's for the best and I learned from this and cancer does make my life better, all those things which I do I think generally believe are true, but let's explore that side of it because I think it's just the thing we should do. Is there any thought of that or any fear that it's just an illusion we're telling ourselves to make ourselves feel better in an impossible situation?
No, I think for my faith, I have a belief I will be able to connect with my wife again, and that helps me drive what I'm doing, and it helps me be able to be um, work harder and improve myself so that when I get connected with my wife again, it's going to be a great reunion. So, and having that grounded in that faith, um, doesn't allow those illusions and thoughts to come in. It just allows me to say, you know what, this is just temporary.
Mm.
And what I need to do is I need to work on myself so that when we become connected again, it's going to be a beautiful reunion that allows us to continue to grow our relationship. So, and I don't think I would have that unless I was grounded in my faith.